Hello and welcome to Melomaniax, the podcast where we take unbiased deep dives into the biggest musicians and bands of all time. I'm Ashton.
And I'm Dallas. Today we're talking about John Williams, legendary film composer John Williams. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, follow on Instagram and TikTok, and most importantly, please hit us with those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcast. It's going to help us grow a little bit quicker than other platforms, although, of course, we appreciate any 5-star reviews on any platforms. Also, we now have a Patreon that is live. We offer a $5 per month tier that gives you access to our private Discord. We have a few people in there where we're always talking music news and music things, as well as a shout out in one of our episodes and the ability to vote on what future episode topics we will cover.
Yes, and now let's get into it. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, might not have had the same impact it did without today's subject. Neither would other huge blockbuster films like E.T., Harry Potter, Jurassic Park. Truly wonderful classics that stay with us because of the incredible scores that accompanied the story. John Williams brought all these films to life with his larger-than-life scores. John has been credited with reviving the Hollywood classic style of scoring films that we, around the 30s, 20s, it was like the golden age is what they called it, and John was known as kind of associated with bringing it back. And but let's hop behind the details behind this 26 Grammy Award winning, 5 Academy Awards, 7 BAFTA Award, 3 Emmy Award, and 4 Golden Globe winning composer. Whew.
Yeah, this guy's the Taylor Swift of the orchestra.
Yeah, highly decorated. Highly.
Every award that exists, he has.
He's actually,
so John Towner Williams. Towner. What do you think about that middle name?
Towner. I like it because it
comes
comes up.
cool.
It comes up in his one of the quartets that he has. It's like the Towner. He goes by he brings the Towner into it.
What's funny is John, very common. Williams, very common. So John Williams has got to be one of the most common names ever. Yeah. Towner, never heard it in my life. So that kind of makes him him.
They were able to get him.
So he was born on February 8th, 1932 in Flushing, Queens, New York City, the Big Apple. Woo. So growing up, music was always a part of the house because his father was actually a professional musician as well. He was a jazz drummer and percussionist for the Raymond Scott Quintet. His father also did a little work with composer Bernard Herrmann, another legendary film composer. So right away, you can see that music is going to be just a huge part in John's life.
Yep. And so that actually led to, in 1948, the Williams family moved to Los Angeles, where John would attend Old North Hollywood High School. And they actually moved because his dad wanted to moved to LA for more music opportunities than New York had to offer. So it was a music move from the father. And back to after high school, John followed up by attending the University of California, Los Angeles. And while attending, he studied composition with the composer Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco. And
nice job on that name.
Thank you. And John also attended one semester at Los Angeles City College purely for the fact that he wanted to play in their studio jazz band. So the other college he was at didn't have a jazz band. This other one did. So he did one semester just to play in the jazz band.
He's a jazzer.
He's a jazzer.
In 1951, he joined the U.S. Air Force, which I did not know this, and he played piano and brass and even conducted and arranged music for the Air Force Band. And while in the Air Force, he also attended music courses at the University of Arizona. I mean, already, I feel like we're still pretty early on, and he's got so much schooling under his belt.
Yeah, and we're only like halfway through. Dude is just, he loves to learn, obviously. Like, you can tell he's got a passion for just learning everything.
Dude is schooled.
And yes, sir. And by 1955, John's stint in the Air Force was over, and he moved back to New York City to enter Juilliard. And he studied piano further with goals of becoming a concert pianist. But after
right there, Juilliard is a legendary university that is supposedly obscenely difficult to get into, let alone like graduate and stuff. And it's very famous for music, dance, theater. You often hear like, oh, he's a Juilliard actor, he's a Juilliard composer. And I knew John Williams was a Juilliard composer. I did not know about all these other schoolings.
Yeah,
so that's so like much. The pinnacle. Like it's like the top of the top for this kind of stuff.
When you get to Juilliard, you made it. But he, after hearing some of the other pianists in the school, he quickly decided to swap focus to composition, realizing he didn't have the chops to compete with some of the other people.
That's so funny.
So quickly swap genres when he realized he was.
You show up there like, let me show you how it's. I'm gonna be a composer.
Yep. These guys are crazy.
I can't play any of this stuff.
Yeah. But he never lost his love for playing jazz and still played around the city and was part of a quartet. So he still continued to play piano, like on the side, basically always. And he actually had his first child around this time, 1956. And then which was his daughter, Jennifer. And then 2 years later, he has his son, Mark, in 58, and then Joseph in 60, which is who you're familiar with because he...
And fun fact about Joseph, he's the lead singer for the band Toto.
Yep. Unfortunately,
not the original lead singer, but the current one.
He wasn't the lead singer during my favorite album, but he came in right after, so I'm sure he performed the tours for that album. He came in from like 80, like a couple years in the 80s, and then he came back 2010 till current.
What was your favorite album? 4?
Yes, I love 4. Yeah, it's such a classic.
That's me. Rosanna, Africa, all that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty legendary. So hard to beat. Yeah. But anyways, we'll get back to John, who's. I wonder what the other. I didn't look up Mark or Jennifer. I wonder if they've done anything with music.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sure they have. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they did the counterculture thing and became lawyers and doctors or something.
Yeah, it's very possible. So, anyways, after completing Juilliard, and he also did some additional studies at Eastman School of Music, another music school in New York. John
showed up and was like, "I want to learn." They were like, "Dude, you know everything. You know it all.
You know it all.
Can you teach me some stuff actually before you leave?
Do you want to teach?" Anyways, after he felt like he got enough schooling from New York, he decided to go back to LA. I love the just constant moving from New York and LA. But anyways, gets over to LA and begins to work as an orchestrator at some studio films, film studios. So he's getting some early film work, and I'd have to imagine that.
We should
do what?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'd have to imagine that this job might have been pretty easier to get with his dad's connections already.
True.
So
I was gonna say we should define what an orchestrator does. So a film, the composition process, there's a lot of people involved. So, and it can depend based on composer how they do it. Mm-hmm. Like someone like Hans Zimmer is going to do a lot of his composition sitting at a computer, programming sounds, doing a lot of sound design and things like that. And he might do a lot of the orchestrating himself where, for example, that means John Williams writes the melody, that's Harry Potter. Yeah. Right. He writes the melody and he's like, all right, cool. I got the melody.
Yeah.
A lot of times composers will then just send that off to the orchestrators and be like, I wrote the melody. Now you put everything else in there. You make the chords, you make the horns, you make the crazy violin runs, you do all that. And then I'll write the next melody because we got a lot of work to do, right? So they kind of split it up. It's not like the composer doesn't always write every note of everything you hear.
That's right. I remember reading about this.
Orchestrators do a lot of that. They fill in everything that the composer hasn't filled in. So that's what he's doing at this point. And usually, it's going to be like kind of beginner composers or earlier in the career composers that are doing the orchestrating and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, John Williams is actually famous for sending off pieces that are almost fully orchestrated. So the orchestrators really don't have a lot of work to do. He's one of and not every composer does that. Sometimes they do almost nothing. They write a quick little melody and maybe some chords and say, all right, do the rest. Not John Williams. He's pretty legendary for pretty much doing every note himself. He's also very famous for writing at a piano with a pencil and a piece of paper.
Yep.
He doesn't use a computer or anything like that.
Super old school. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of all in his head and he just gets it all out and it ends up working really well for him. So
yeah, I remember
I wanted to take a quick sidebar with the orchestration definition.
That. Yeah. I remember when I was reading, it said that some composers will snob at people who use orchestrators, but then it quickly kind of detailed what orchestrators do and why they're kind of necessary to the process and why using them
they're almost like good. Assistant composer might even
it literally is like a personal assistant to the composer in a way that they like the composer is able to delegate. It's their assistant manager the composers
And
at the
a
top,
lot of the-
and they're delegating a lot of the busy work to the orchestrator.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of that is not because the composer can't do it, which is why it's silly to be snobby about it.
He did it. He
almost
did it for
always
years,
because of
probably.
deadlines.
Yeah.
It's almost always because of deadlines.
Because when it comes down to money in film, deadlines are huge.
Well, and oftentimes people don't consider that when the film composer gets the movie, it's basically done. Mm-hmm. And there's a release date, there's a marketing date, everybody's out doing press, and the composer has 4-6 weeks to get the entire movie done because the machine's moving with or without him. So and everyone's like waiting on him. So it's kind of like he's got the most pressure. He's the very last thing that happens before it's done.
Yeah. So orchestrators are very important to the process, but they don't really take away from the creative process that the composer is offering in a way.
Right. It's his vision. He's in charge.
Exactly. Which is a misconception. Sure. A lot of people think that it's like the composer's just lazy and the orchestrator does all the work, all the writing, and the composer gets the credit. That's not how it is. It's a team. Yeah. It's a team effort.
And maybe sometimes it changes from composer to composer, probably even from film to film.
Yeah.
So everybody has their way of working. John's is just legendarily, he kind of does everything and he does it real old school. So. But yeah, as for his piano playing, he started doing studio sessions around town. Yep. He was able to land quite a few movie scores as a pianist, which is kind of funny because he kind of not gave up on it, but pursued other interests. Mm-hmm. And you or I, we weren't really familiar with any of the films. They're all,
from the 50s,
films from the 50s
and 60s, yeah, super early stuff. But some of them were pretty, he worked with some good producers, apparently, some pretty famous producers during this time. So he was getting some decent work for sure.
And outside of this, he's working on 2 jazz albums.
Yep. So
that's World on a String and the John Towner Touch, which there we go. That's a great name right there.
Right? The
John Towner Touch is the best name I've heard maybe ever.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The John Towner Touch.
So it's kind of smooth, peaceful jazz, right?
Yeah. It's really reminded me of what your dad used to play around the house.
Yeah,
we
call that smooth jazz.
Smooth jazz, yeah. It's very relaxing. That's when I was doing the research. Yes, I was constantly looking up a lot of the film score stuff, but when I wasn't specifically listening to any film scores, I just had his jazz album, specifically World on a String, playing in the background. It's so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but also I like jazz in general.
Yeah, it just has that way of instantly making any atmosphere more classy.
Yep. That instant you just play jazz and that place just is they've got a little class here. Okay.
I'll turn you onto this Apple Music playlist called Piano Bar.
Ooh.
You got to check it out. It's just it makes every moment, cooking dinner, whatever, it just turns it up to you're in the lobby of an
I'm in a restaurant.
Suites.
Yeah, dude. Instantly. Oh, that's funny.
It's so fun.
But anyways, we'll go back to film. And John wrote his first film composition back in 1954 while he was still in the Air Force. It was for Daddy-O, or not Daddy-O. It was a promotional film for some tourist information office. So I guess they just had a little promo video, and he just put together the music for it. But
I just imagine the most epic music in this silly come to Newfoundland.
Yeah, right. Just the John Williams sound. And then his first feature film was for Daddy-O. I'm sorry, that was his first film composition that he actually did, and that was in 1958.
1958. Yeah. Wow.
And then he did some work on a few television series, including the pilot episode for Gilligan's Island. He did Lost in Space, The Time Tunnel, and Land of Giants. And so he got to work with prolific TV producer Irwin Allen during this period. So,
and in 1965, now we fast forward a few years, the movie How to Steal $1 Million was John's first time working for a quote super talent director, and that's his words, not ours. And in 1967, he won his first Oscar. I mean, what? For his score on Fiddler on the Roof. He then scored back-to-back Robert Altman films in Images and The Long Goodbye. His career at this point is clearly just kind of taken off. So he started to catch a little recognition for his scores for 3 disaster films that he scored for Irwin Allen. Disaster films are films where a great disaster or some sort of destruction is the main theme. Twister comes to mind.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yep.
What year was Twister? Do you know?
90. 92, 91, maybe.
That's
it
what I
might
would
have
guess
actually
too,
been
yeah.
in the late 80s, to be honest. It might have been in, I feel like I looked this up recently with Nicole, and I want to say it was earlier than we thought. So it might have been like 89.
Interesting.
89 to like 92, somewhere in that period.
Yeah, that would have been my guess as well.
Yeah.
The three films John Williams did, though, not Twister, were The Poseidon Adventure, The Towering Inferno, and Earthquake. Guess what those were about?
Right.
They were released in the respective years of 72, 74, and 74. So, I mean, the guy stays busy. Yep. And the Trinity of films would actually be the highest grossing disaster films of the decade, which says a lot because they came out in the earlier part of the decade. Two other films of mention are The Reavers and The Cowboys, and they came out in 69 and 72 respectively. Though these films aren't credited as anything special by John, the scores on them caught the interest of a young and upcoming producer you may have heard of, Steven Spielberg.
Yep. A very important member in John's career. So Steven was working on his debut film, The Sugarland Express, and one of the composer from the Reviers, he wasn't super familiar with John, but he had heard his work. And the two met in a high-end Beverly Hills restaurant, and John recalls Steven looking like a little kid, basically. I think Steven was like 27 at the time, but he said, and I think John's in his 40s, but he said, he looked like this young kid, and it seemed like he had never been to like a fancy restaurant before. And so like everything seemed off, but then as soon as Steven started to talk about film and music, John immediately recognized that Steven was just like a film music genius. Like he knew everything that John knew. And so the two definitely wanted to work together, and so The Sugarland Express would be their first film together, and then they would actually reunite 1 year later to work on the first iconic film of our episode, EF DF. These famous notes would strike fear into the entire nation with 1975's release of Jaws. And that main theme of just EF and occasional DF and occasional F sharp, it just randomly will change notes, but it's really EF that just like kind of holds down the main theme. And you'll listen, if you go back and listen, you'll hear the strings doing the EF, and then you'll hear them play like an F or a D, and then random, but like those random altercations. But this main theme would become like the new association with danger. Like outside of the film, when you hear the Jaws theme, you immediately just think like danger. And there was a lot of research and stuff with why, and the EF kind of represents like a heartbeat, or like of the shark. And this is what people speculate. Really, it was just, I think Steven walked in and was talking to John, and John was just sitting at the piano, and he just looked at Steven and hit the two notes and was like, "That's our theme." And Steven just thought it was a joke, and then he actually wrote the whole theme with just EF, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, no, the whole theme, super simple to play, but so effective. God, the emotion that it draws out of you, just like that guttural fear, or that just instinctual fear.
Yeah, and Jaws is largely responsible for society's fear of sharks.
Oh, yeah.
I had heard, and I was not alive, I had heard that prior to Jaws, nobody really thought about sharks as a danger. Like, it was just kind of like hang out at the beach. Literally no thought was given to shark attacks.
Yep.
And then after Jaws, it was like, it's a different world.
Yep. My parents both felt that way. They got significantly more scared of the ocean after the movie came out. And 75? So my parents, were 10 years old. So like that prime age where when you're scared of something, it kind of sticks with you for the rest of your life. So no, definitely. Jaws had such impact on the entire nation with their fear of sharks, and then even just the music in general. But
and even though Steven thought he was kidding about the main motif there for the shark, during the other parts of the movie, John applied like a pirate theme to the music. Like the sailing parts of the movie, there's like a sea shanty vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I actually like those parts of the score. It's really good. It's got that like video game.
It's one of the first iconic film scores.
Yeah, it's like got that adventure kind of feel to it. And Steven claims the movie wouldn't have been half as successful without the killer score. I'd kind of have to agree. The movie itself isn't like anything spectacular, but the music definitely bumps it to that extra. But John,
I'd go even further and to say, like, similar to Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, I think the score actually transcends the movie itself. Because, like, I knew Jaws, the da-da-da, I knew that.
Yeah.
And I've only seen the movie one time, and it was, like, 5 years ago. Like,
yeah.
But I've known that sound my entire life.
Yeah, exactly.
So
You've heard the sound
the score kind of transcended the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this movie would actually end up winning John a Grammy, a BAFTA Award, and a Golden Globe. So pretty successful score. And the film itself also won 3 Academy Awards for Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Sound. So two of the film awards were from the music itself as well. So
you just can't miss.
So yeah, those two kind of just established their legendary careers together. And from this point on,
from this point on, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, from this point on, Steven and John's careers would basically take off in full force, and they worked on another movie together after Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the movie would add to both of their trophy cases. I think John got a pair of Grammys and a ton of other nominations, and Steven earned a couple awards. I didn't pay attention to as much of Steven's awards, but I assume alongside of John, he gets basically just as many.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
Right.
Filmomaniacs.
Yep.
Cinemaniacs
is what I was gonna. Yeah, we'll have to hire on a couple. We'll have to hire on some movie nuts to go run that one for us. That's
not a bad idea.
I know.
So John would have the honor, moving forward, of scoring Alfred Hitchcock's final film, Family Plot. This is one of those scores that you could have never heard before, listen to it, and immediately identify as John Williams.
Yep.
Because he's just, it's just right along there with his other work. And it's a beautiful score, definitely well worth the listen. He followed this with Richard Donner's 1978 release of Superman, very famous score of his. And fun fact, the box set of the film score actually charted on the Billboard Hot 100 52. Yep. So the dude is breaking into the pop world, dude, with his scores.
We've gone over other subjects that haven't been nearly as successful on the Billboard.
Avenged Sevenfold's a touring band. They've never hit the charts or something. Right?
And here goes the
John's
Superman.
not even trying. He's like,
oh, what?
I hit the what?
Yeah, I know.
Never
right?
heard of that. I'm just over here doing my thing.
That blew my mind when I saw that. I was like, what? And I mean, the Superman music is good. I always hear it whenever we go to Universal and you go through the Marvel. No, because it's Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
No, it is. It's not Marvel specifically, is it? Yeah, it is. So I don't hear this. Where do I hear the Superman music?
It's a very famous, the main Superman theme that John Williams wrote. It's a very famous one.
Oh, maybe it is Universal. I don't think because Universal has like a superhero area.
Disney has
and I'm
Marvel,
trying to remember.
So
that's why I was trying to remember. They have a lot of Marvel stuff, but I also think they have DC because I think that because it's Universal, it's not tied to Marvel or DC. It's whatever movies they produce. So like, I feel like I've heard the Superman theme there a lot because every time I hear it, it sounds recognizable, and I've never seen that Superman movie, like the 1978 version.
I haven't either,
but I've heard the song.
I guess it's also possible that they just played it, just unrelated to anything. They just played the theme.
That's very possible.
Vibe,
Yeah, because I mean, John Williams music is like what you're going to hear at those parks, anyways.
Yeah, true.
And so, but anyways, we need to hop back a couple years. We're getting ahead with the Steven Spielberg and John Williams stuff to another young producer who was writing a space opera and needed a composer to work with. So young George Lucas called up his pal Steven Spielberg and was talking to him about some composers. He said, I need some music for my film. And Steven recommended John Williams to George Lucas. And thank God he did, because in 77, we got the first Star Wars film.
Yep.
What a classic. But anyways, the movie itself was a huge risk because the 70s were in a slow time for sci-fi cinema. And so I think the only two films that came out during that year or during that decade that were any bit successful was like Planet of the Apes and there's one other.
Planet of the Apes was before the 70s though, right?
Yeah,
up
it's like
until that point, the only sci-fi movies you really had
Planet
was
of
like
the Apes came out
2001.
in like early 70s, like early 70s. Yeah, it was like one of the earlier
And then you
ones.
had 2001, which I think was like 68 or something.
Yeah, those are the reboots, the ones we saw then.
So those were the blueprints for sci-fi at the time, and George wasn't following those blueprints, so everyone was like, this definitely isn't going to work.
Yeah, because a lot of the sci-fi films were using like synthesizers and stuff like that to try and like represent the future, and like they had weird soundtracks, and so George wanted to attack.
And you know what's so funny about that now is the synthesizers and those sounds that were supposed to represent the future are exactly what makes them sound old and dated,
like the past.
Where you could put Star Wars the first main theme from 1977 up against anything today, and it sounds right at home.
Yep. Exactly.
It's so funny that they managed to crack that code. Maybe even they cracked it accidentally, but they did.
Right. So when so like we said, John attacked the movie with like a powerful old fashioned. He puts it as a Western. He views Star Wars as like a Western.
It's a space Western. Yeah. There's
Western.
cowboys. There's deserts.
And so anyways, it was heavily inspired with Wagner. Sorry. Wagner, and then you said it had a lot of stuff from
Gustav Holst's The Planets was one of the main things I had heard that George Lucas had gave John Williams as reference material. And if you listen to The Planets, you'll hear it more than anything else, I think. And I think The Planets was maybe written in like the 20s, 30s, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so it's not as maybe old and classic as some of the other classical composers. But it's you can definitely hear the Star Wars if you listen to The Planets top to bottom. I would highly recommend Mars and Jupiter, but they're all worth a listen.
You can hear it come through heavily. But yeah, it's no secret that Star Wars was just kind of piecing together a bunch of old classical pieces and styles and applying it to a sci-fi film, and it worked out tremendously. My goodness. But it also set up something that no composer really has ever had the opportunity to do, and that's to have like 9 episodes to build on an original composition piece, so to like continuously like world build with your themes and stuff. And so he got a really awesome opportunity with that. But he what's funny, I forgot to mention this, when he was writing the music for the first movie, he had included an entire love theme for Luke and Leia, like a developing love theme and them falling in love and everything. And of course, pretty quickly found out they were brother and sister and had to scrap the whole thing. But
we'll call that the West Virginia theme.
Yeah. And then he actually wrote the main theme last, like what you see with the words coming up at the beginning. Da, da, or that beginning.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yep. That was the last bit of music. Yep. That was the last bit written. Yeah. Da, 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 da. So
that's so crazy.
Yeah. But anyways, we're going to talk about all 9 of them real quick, just to save the timeline from getting messy. Mm-hmm. But anyways, John based his score on a bunch of, I believe you say it, motifs.
Yeah.
Leitmotifs, and that covered the whole
film.
So that
came from, I want to say that came from classical opera, where basically anytime a character was on the screen, you'd hear their theme.
Yep, exactly.
And so John took that and basically put it in Star Wars. So anytime you see Darth Vader, you hear da, da, da. But he takes it a step further, and anytime you hear references to someone or thoughts about someone, or maybe even foreshadowing something, like when Anakin is apparently turning to the dark side in like episode 2, you see dark thoughts and things coming out of him. You'll hear very faintly sometimes Darth Vader's theme in the very back, even though Vader doesn't exist yet. So all sorts of really cool playing with motifs and leitmotifs and stuff throughout this. And Star Wars is probably one of the best examples of that, and really all of cinema.
Yeah, I think my favorite is, I love the Luke theme, and it's not officially called the Luke theme. It's just that bit of music.
The Force theme, yeah.
The Force theme, yeah. It plays like during the double setting sun part. That, oh my God, that's like one of the most powerful moments in that film.
Binary sunset. What's so funny is if you take away the music, he's just literally standing there staring at the sun.
That's what, dude. That's like, literally what. That's what. Oh God, what's his name? The actor.
Oh, Mark Hamill?
Mark Hamill. That's what Mark said. He said that scene is nothing without the music. He's like, the music made...
No, it's literally nothing.
He literally was like, he made everything. I just stood there and looked at a sun, and he was like, but the music makes it this iconic, emotional part when really nothing happened.
It'd be really funny to see those scenes without the music, and people go back and put in the actual like sounds, you know?
Yeah.
Where you just like hear him breathing, you hear like a bird in the distance, like
I mean,
you hear the wind.
that's like what John hears when he watches it the first time. Before he watches that, and then he turns it into what you hear. And also the Cantina Band song in that first one, so his love for jazz coming through in his score a little bit.
Yep.
I would consider that song, and you have a little you've got some experience with that song.
Yeah, my band used to play it live. Yeah, we used to do that live. Super fun.
Leia's theme is pretty iconic.
We should bring that back
as well. Leia's theme has that French horn in it. That is so good.
I'm trying to think of her theme. Hers is the one I always struggle to remember. As soon as I hear the first couple notes, I'm like, oh yeah, but I cannot ever remember it. It's the really, really pretty one.
Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to remember it to sing to you. Like, it's another one, like, as soon as I hear it, I'm like, that's right, that's Leia's. But it's that French horn, and it's got like the French horn in general just sounds like a heroic instrument. Like, in general.
The French horn's it's doing most of the heavy lifting in that Force theme as well.
Yep, exactly.
So the score for this album was actually recorded in England with the London Symphonic Orchestra, which is, you know, one of the most well-known orchestras in the world. Mm-hmm. Abbreviated LSO for ease of talking here. And they would be responsible for recording the first 6 installments of Star Wars. The film was never intended to be as successful as it ended up becoming. It launched May 25th, 1977, and ended up grossing $127 million by the end of the year. In mid-July, a full double-sided CD of just the symphonic orchestra score sold over 650,000 copies, which, if you listen to the show, you know means it went gold.
Yep.
Grossing over $9 million, it would go on to become the best-selling symphonic album of all time. That's pretty obvious and almost even expected.
Yeah, just crazy.
At this point, looking back.
Right? Yeah, looking back. Because...
So let's hop into Empire Strikes Back.
People buying film music wasn't really a thing. That's why that number is so crazy.
No.
Yeah, like nobody bought soundtracks.
I mean, what are you going to throw that in your car as you're driving down the road? Like, you look like a psycho.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll hop into the next film, which was Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back in 1980. And most notable songs from this one would be the introduction of the Imperial March, which is Darth Vader's theme. And which I didn't even know. I thought the Imperial March had existed in the 4th one. I didn't know that Darth Vader was themed. Yeah. He was themeless for a whole movie.
That's true.
Can't believe it. He was walking around without a theme. And
so real quick side note, you know, they went back and re-edited them and added some CGI and stuff in the early or late 90s, right before episode 1.
Yep.
I wonder if they went back and added some Darth Vader theme to some pieces of it.
That would make sense, because he's definitely in the movie, but he doesn't have the Imperial March, you know?
I remember it just broke my brain as a kid watching. They went back and added Hayden Christensen as the Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And I was watching, I was like, wait, this movie came out in like 83. How did, what?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I had no idea. I was like, this guy sees the future. This guy's amazing.
Yeah. So the Imperial March is like, I would say, like the theme of evil. People use it outside of Star Wars too. Like the danger, I don't know what you would say. Maybe not evil, because when Kobe Bryant came back from his
more
injury,
than one.
he played the Imperial March for his walk onto the court.
And I've seen more than one husband have it as their wife's ringtone.
Yeah. So it's not like evil. It's like a warning soundtrack. But we also get a Yoda's theme and a theme for Han Solo and the princess falling in love in this one. And these themes are
Yoda's theme.
Yeah, the themes are important because they do make the themes always make reappearances in future films. So it's really cool that, like we said, he's like world building with the music themes.
Oh yeah.
And then I think this was my favorite movie, I think, for a while as a kid. I just loved Hoth, personally. I don't know about you. I was just really big on this.
Yeah.
On this.
Yeah, I mean, I
like music aside.
I have a hard time.
Music aside, just the movie. I think as a little kid, this was my first favorite one.
I have a hard time ranking them and stuff because I just love Star Wars so much. But for me, it was the prequels all go over these just because of how old I was when they came out.
Oh yeah, dude. As soon as Phantom Menace came out, that was my favorite for sure. And it still actually ranks as one of my favorite, despite what people say. That was peak.
But I still remember.
I was a kid.
I still remember me and friends of mine when I was a very, very, very small kid. 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, sitting on the floor watching Star Wars and saying the lines as they're being delivered, like literally quoting the whole movie.
Yep.
It was a big part of my childhood, and that would have been these, Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back and stuff.
Yeah. So
Phantom Menace came out in 99, but your favorite was Return of the Jedi, right? 1983.
That is my favorite movie as an adult, looking back at all of them. You know what I mean? Like, this is my favorite one. Yeah. This one became my favorite probably when I was a teenager, as but this is my favorite just because of like the Luke story, the green lightsaber, all of that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, though, there's not really a whole lot of new music in this one. Like, there is new music, but like this is like a culmination of a bunch of themes and like getting some like closure on a lot of music because of like it's like at the time it was like the end of the series type thing. You do get the Emperor's theme in this one. That one is good.
Which, it's worth saying, is probably my number one favorite theme.
Yeah. You do get the Emperor's theme
so much.
Yeah, and it is a great theme. And then
which I think could actually be expanded. It is the Emperor's theme, but I think we could even call it just the Sith's theme.
The Sith theme in general.
Because it keeps coming back in different spots throughout the movie, or the movies. But I just love that.
We also
really
get the
ominous. It's the darkest, creepiest theme in all Star Wars, I think. Yeah.
I do believe they brought it back.
Way more menacing. I think it's way more menacing than the Imperial March.
Yeah, I think that's how we were able to identify the Emperor in the 8th or 9th movie. I think it's the 9th movie that he comes back, and I think it's his theme gets played. But
I think if I'm comparing the Emperor's theme to Darth Vader's theme, it's actually funny how well it works out. John Williams doing his thing so well. The Imperial March is very much like we're the bad guys, here we come, right down the main road. You can see us from 9 miles away. Get ready, we're coming in, we're destroying everybody. It's very obvious, right?
Yep.
The Emperor's theme is much more like, I work in the shadows, you never know I'm here, I'm controlling everything. That's to me why it's so much darker and creepier, where it's a lot more than just an army marching down the main road.
Yeah, and this stuff is intentional with how he writes his music too.
Yeah,
like every detail of it is intentional, and it's impressive. And we
also get the Ewok celebration song.
I was just about to say, we also got the Ewok celebration song, which is cool if you're into that. That's a fun one.
And right now I'm trying to think of the Ewok celebration song, but all I'm hearing is the Gungan celebration song at the end of episode 1.
The Gungans.
Da, 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 da.
Which we can go ahead and jump into that.
Let's do it.
That movie, which controversial, I think is my second favorite Star Wars movie, The Phantom Menace. It just has so much nostalgia with me. I had
do you think
of the toys.
Is Return of the Jedi still your number 1?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and then this is my number 2, and I had like every toy game associated with this one. This really drove my fandom to that next level.
Honestly, and we're going to get into it. I mean, musically, there's a strong argument that this one's number 1.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying. Musically, this is like his greatest piece, in my opinion, is this movie.
I mean, maybe you'd have to say 2 because it is a sequel and Star Wars original, A New Hope. Which, by the way, when it came out, was not called A New Hope or Star Wars 4. It was literally just called Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
that one
you could argue that can't be knocked out of the number 1 piece because it created all this. So in that case, The Phantom Menace would take number 2. But wow, the music in this one is just incredible. Dude. And I'm right there with you because of the nostalgia. When it came out, I was looking forward to it for so long.
Yeah, and this one has,
as a kid, all the ads and everything were just, I was 7. So
peak,
it's perfect.
Peak Star Wars. But this one, I think, has my favorite song of the entire franchise, Duel of the Fates. That song is so good. But let's dive into this song. So it's kind of like the main theme, but it really goes. Duel of Fates really plays during the Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in the hangar for the final fight.
Let me pause you there.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you hear? I think it was in the Mandalorian behind, like the making of series, where they're sitting around a round table talking about the show. Dave Filoni goes on a 10-minute rant about the Duel of Fates. So do you know why it's called the Duel of the Fates? We're gonna get real Star Wars nerdy here.
I'm wondering if I passed along it in reading, because I paid attention to specific parts. But go ahead.
They're fighting over Anakin's fate, over his future.
Yeah.
So basically, if Qui-Gon wins, then he gets to be Anakin's master, and he's the master that Anakin needs, because he's different. He's outside. He's fringe. Yeah. He doesn't conform to the typical Jedi Order stuff, and that's what Anakin needs to become a good guy, basically. Mm-hmm. If Qui-Gon loses and then Obi-Wan ends up winning, Obi-Wan is the consummate Jedi. He's very by the book. He's, do no wrong. I follow the orders, all that stuff, and that's not what Anakin needs, because that's going to end up leading him down a dark path in the end, which is what happens. So what they're fighting, they're not fighting Darth Maul. They're literally fighting for Anakin's fate. And when you think about it that way, it's such a wild, like much deeper scene with a lot more on the line.
Yeah, that makes me so sad that Qui-Gon died, man. I liked Qui-Gon so much. And I like Obi-Wan a lot too. I'm a by the book kind of person, so I would personally want Obi-Wan as my master, but I've never looked at it the way you explained it. That's pretty crazy.
I hadn't either. That you guys got to go check out the Mandalorian making of directors talk whatever episode on Disney Plus, and there's a scene where Dave Filoni breaks it down much more eloquently than I just did. I can't even say the word eloquently, and he really knows what's up. So yeah, it's a really good one if you're curious about this. But
so I'll dive into some other aspects. So
let's do it. The
chorus that you hear singing, you'll hear a chorus singing some random words in the back. I say random, but what it is it's a Sanskrit translation of a Celtic poem, The Battle of the Trees. Specifically, there's a stanza in the poem that John pulled from. Under the tongue root a fight most dread, while another rages behind the head. And so when you do classical music, a lot of time it's sung in Italian because most words end in vowels in Italian when sung. So it sounds really pretty. It's very easy to sing, and which is why a lot of people don't sing in English, because we have so many consonant ending words. It sounds horrible to sing in. It's the hardest to sing in, is singing in English. So he didn't want to go with the classic Italian approach. So he was researching other languages that had the same singing aspects as Italian. So like the ending on a lot of vowels and stuff, and vowel sounds. And so he came across Sanskrit, and he had a buddy in Harvard translate it. And so the words that you hear sung are translated from that poem in Sanskrit, and specifically the fight and dread are the most two common words, and it's just constant repeating of those words mixed up in different orders. So I thought that was really, really, really awesome, the way he approached that one.
Yeah, that's really awesome, because I didn't never put any thought to what was being said. I just thought it was cool.
Yep, same. It's just crazy to me how much detail goes into everything that, like, and we're just, like you said, we're just hearing sounds like, oh, that sounds good. And really, there's just so much meticulous thought put into it.
The layers. The more you peel them back, the more you learn.
And then something you mentioned earlier that blew my mind is in Anakin's theme in the very first movie, he wrote it using the Imperial March. So he took the Imperial March and he took pieces from it and kind of rearranged a lot of the notes and things like that, and wanted to add in some happy sounds, for Anakin, but with an underlying evil. And so he rearranged that, wrote the Anakin's theme. And if you actually go back, and I can't believe I never noticed this, just if you play Anakin's theme, there's two parts in it that fade into the Imperial March, where like at the end of the music, it goes do, 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 like quietly.
Right. Yeah.
If you would have been paying attention, if you would have been paying attention in the first movie, it was revealed that Anakin was Darth Vader in the music at the time.
Well, also, do you remember the ad though, where it was Anakin walking away from his home and his shadow is Darth Vader?
I don't actually.
I gotta send you that ad. It's one of the coolest movie posters of all time. Anakin Darth Vader shadow poster. You got to Google this.
When did it come out?
It's one of the, I think it was one of the ones used to advertise the movie.
Oh.
But I don't remember. But it's little Anakin standing next to one of his huts, on Tatooine, and the shadow behind him, his shadow being cast as Darth Vader.
Oh, that's cool.
So, which is just absolute genius graphic work and everything.
Yeah, so I thought that was crazy going back and listening to that. But yeah, dude, that film score is just peak Star Wars for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then the next one, which I thought was one of your favorites, Star Wars Attack of the Clones.
I loved Attack of the Clones,
which was in 2002.
Yeah. Which a lot of people agree is like the worst movie.
I just specifically remembering, I don't know why, when I associate these memories. So I had a lot of the toys from the Phantom Menace. I feel like I remember you having almost every toy and thing from Attack of the Clones.
Probably. So I definitely had like Kit Fisto
and
stuff.
I'd like go to your house and it would be like, I'd like bring over my Qui-Gon lightsaber and stuff like that. And you would have like all the Attack of the Clones, like the clone guns and things like that. And so I was like, and that one had Jango Fett. I know you like Jango Fett a lot.
Love Jango Fett.
As far as music, or what were you going to say?
I was just going to say Across the Stars, which I think is what you were going to say.
It was.
Which is such an amazing love theme between Anakin and Padme.
Yep.
And this is the first time it appears.
Yep. And this one layers in Luke's theme a little bit, actually, the Force theme. And this was hints at Luke being their child, so they wanted. So John always, whenever it's family members, specifically with Star Wars, he likes to incorporate their themes together a lot with this reoccurring stuff. So that's why it's really fun with John, the way he explained it, that he's able to like continuously build on these themes as he goes. And like not many film composers have ever been given this like broad opportunity, especially since George gives him basically just like as much freedom as he wants. So
after a certain point of having proved yourself, it's like, dude, you know what's up. Just get it done. Like, you got this.
Yep. And then no
micromanaging.
Yeah. So the final in the movie done with LSO would be Star Wars Revenge of the Sith 2005, which I remember getting out of school early. We got out of school early and went and watched this one.
We left Crossroads.
That's right. Crossroads. And
our school for just sixth graders. Your dad got us out early to go see it. We were superstars. It was the coolest feeling ever to leave school early to go to a movie.
Right. And Star Wars nonetheless. But I like the progression. So nothing specifically, no songs stand out specifically for me in this movie, but the progression of the...
You don't think so? Battle of the Heroes.
Okay, Battle of... All right, that one is a good one, but I like the progression from Attack of the Clones to this one because he uses like the same themes, but they all get a lot darker. So like in Attack of the Clones, there's still hope sprinkled in a lot of the music. Like there's still some happiness, some hope. Dude, you get into the Revenge of the Sith, all the happy music is gone. That it is very dark.
It's a much darker movie for sure.
Yeah, it is dark all the way through. It's really cool to see the evolution. Everyone's themes take a turn for the worse. You can hear the tragedy in it.
The music.
It's a great piece. I just like it.
I've always loved when they go to that space opera and he's telling the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. The music in that is super dark and really cool.
I was just talking. I haven't seen the movies in a while. Of course, I re-listened to like all the music during my research, but I didn't actually.
I need to recheck. I need to check out Anakin's theme from episode 1 to hear those things you're talking about. But
we'll go over it.
I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, we'll go over it after because, dude, the goosebumps I got, and I was showing Nicole when I was doing it. Oh, the goosebumps were nuts. But
yeah, man.
But yeah,
I mean, these stories. It seems silly, but these stories were such a part of our childhood. They mean so much to us as fans.
Yeah, exactly. And so.
This is turning into the Star Wars episode. Let's skip ahead.
Right. Yep. We'll skip ahead to the 7th movie that came out in 2015. And
2015. Once again, you and me in the theater together.
Yep. And they brought
opening night.
They brought John back to do the Disney, who is now Disney, not George Lucas, for these new films. The Disney sequel, I say, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And this movie was very much like A New Hope, but the music wasn't. He actually, crazy enough, out of the 7th, 8th, and 9th movie, he barely used old music.
I think that makes sense. I think that's the right call.
Yeah, he only used like 4 minutes or something of like reused music, a lot of which was like, he used some old themes. Of course, when like it shows the Millennium Falcon and stuff, like when you introduce the old characters, their theme plays briefly, but almost the entire things are brand new scores, which is awesome. And I really like Rey's
I'll never
theme.
Forget. Oh yeah, Rey's theme stands out as the peak of this one for sure.
Yep.
But I'll never forget us in the theater opening night, and it was probably the best movie going experience I've ever had. We had such a great theater. It was packed.
Dude.
There was not an open seat, and everyone was cheering at the right times, laughing at the right times, yelling at the right. It was such a fun, like, communal experience.
Yeah.
That remains the peak of like movie going for me. I don't think, and streaming's kind of taken over now, but I don't think we'll get that anymore really. But it was,
I just got
that
goosebumps
was just such a
thinking
special
about
viewing.
it. Yeah. I had forgotten about that memory. Just like,
well, and remember we went at 7 p.m. on opening night, and then we finished, got out of the movie and got right back in line and went to the 10 o'clock showing.
Yep. That's right. Dude.
The 10 o'clock showing was awesome as well. But the 7 o'clock showing was the one with the amazing group of people that were in there, all dressed up, just everybody having a blast. It was like, you got to remember the time when Star Wars fans were so excited for that, because there had been nothing since 2005.
Yeah, 10-year break. And
yeah, it's crazy. And now we're damn near 10 years past that.
It's specifically the part for me where they were like, that pile of junk, and you just know, like, oh my god, is it?
Oh,
is
yeah.
it? And then it pans to the Millennium Falcon. Dude, that theater erupted.
The theater erupted.
Erupted.
Oh, and when Han and Chewie turn the corner and say, Chewie, we're home.
Chewie,
like,
we're
same
home.
Thing.
Oh my god, there was like just 5 minutes of cheering. Jesus, that was awesome.
So
God,
good.
I'm just covered in goosebumps.
Back to Rey's theme, which I think you're right, was the standout theme for this movie. Rey's the standout character.
Yep.
It definitely has a different style of melody than most characters up to this point. It kind of has more of the Harry Potter vibe, with the chimes.
Like, yeah,
because
it's got like, it uses a different instruments than most of the other Star Wars characters' themes have up to this point.
Yeah.
And it's got like oh god, it's like a flute, right? It goes like do 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 do.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, it's like something like that. It's like super.
I think
like
it's a clarinet or something.
Yeah, clarinet
or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of those like what is it, wind instrument? But but that theme is like really, really awesome, and because of how unique it is, and it's got like that real adventurous tone to it. I don't know. It's just it stood out to me as one of the more unique themes and one of my favorite themes through the series.
Yeah, and John's work over in the Star Wars franchise has resulted in an Academy Award, 2 BAFTA Awards, a Golden Globe, and 7 Grammys. So we thought that deserved a little more than just kind of glossing over in this episode. So that's why we got so deep into Star Wars. But let's jump back to 1980.
Yep, back to the old timeline. And
so John took over as the principal conductor for the Boston Pops Orchestra. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. He would maintain this gig from 80 until 93. Yeah, that's a long time. He still does occasional shows with them, especially around the holidays. So in 81, John scored Spielberg's new movie, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So once again, I mean, you see he's just... Every like movie theme you could sing by memory is pretty much John
Williams, right?
Yeah. So the story was originally created by George Lucas and Philip Kaufman. Harrison Ford just couldn't get away from George Lucas. Apparently, he's always getting roped back in.
Bro, and he always talks about it.
It's
too.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
you know him, you love him. So the score has a famous theme that involves Indy and his love interest Marion Ravenwood, and the.
That's like
you remember. You said you remember the music more than the movie, right?
Yeah, because like
I personally, I'm not even convinced I've seen. I 100% have not seen all of the Indiana Jones.
You just know
I'm not 100%. I don't think I've seen any of them, to be honest.
It's been a long time since I've seen them. I know one of them.
I might have seen the first one.
I know one of them. Like, they have to drink out of the chalice. That's supposed to be like oh god, what is it called?
They're just perfect like adventure movies.
Yeah, they're just
right?
adventure movies that I haven't seen in a while, but I know I've seen them, and at least the first 2 quite a bit.
I'm not. I
stopped,
maybe have seen one of them.
I stopped keeping. I didn't watch Temple of Doom, or no, I saw Temple of Doom. Maybe it is okay. So I think I've seen the first three. I've not seen Crystal Skull or the other new one. So I've seen the original three. So I have not seen the new two.
Yeah. So to put them in order here, John would score all of them for starters, and the first one kicked off a whole series. So in order, we have Raiders of the Lost Ark in 81. We have Temple of Doom in 84. Last Crusade in 89. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, or Kingdom of Crystal Skull, in 2008. And finally, I remember this one just last year, Dial of Destiny, which I think people said they did not like, but I don't remember. He would actually John would collect 2 Grammys from his work on the Indiana Jones series. So there you go.
Yep. And then that love theme, I guess, like I was listening to it. There was just a lot of, I guess, people really like the way that the theme is, because Indy thinks that Marion is dead for like a portion of the movie, and like anytime he thinks about her is when her theme plays, you know, type of thing. So it's like the way it was incorporated was good. And then of course, like I said, everybody knows the main do 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 do. And but something that people liked with the score was like the way John Williams scored it was like the music would tell Indiana Jones when to like jump, or when danger was coming, or when to like duck. And like, so the music like went along with all the actions that happened in the film, like correspondingly. People also enjoyed that. A lot of
times they call that style of film scoring Mickey Mousing, because if you watch back old cartoons, you know, you have the xylophone when they're taking steps, you know, that kind of thing. Where every little action had a musical counterpart to it. But so a lot of times that's called Mickey Mousing. Not as common in you know, modern film scores, but it's definitely an element that John Williams has used and at least taken inspiration from in some of these scores for Indiana Jones. So let's get back to the timeline here.
82, little after the Raiders of the Lost Ark, back with Steven Spielberg for another classic, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And when John presented the music to Steven, he liked the parts of the score so much that he actually changed some of the scenes to fit the music. And it's actually really magical. I watched a whole hour-long ceremony of John winning the 2016 AFI Life Achievement Award. And it had tons of people. Of course, Steven was there, there was just a bunch of people there, but Steven came out and did his part and showed the part of E.T. just where the kid's bike takes off, you know, like where he's going up and through the trees and whatnot. And he kind of showed him just to show like, this is what John sees when he first, and it was just absolutely dead silent. The only sound you heard was like the actual pedals on the bike as it like went up. And he was like, that's what he watches. And then, you know, this is what it does. And then it showed it with the music behind it. And it's just like instant chill, full body chills. You're like, oh my God, he's so good. Like just that. Like just the emotion that you tie in with the music. But nothing to do with the music, but the ET ride at Universal Studios is like my wife and I's favorite. It's like a super old ride that is, people would probably hate, but we just absolutely love it to death.
Really?
Yep. And it's got like you, while waiting in line, like Steven is talking about the film and stuff like that. And there's a bunch of behind the scenes, but it's just one of those like really cool. And then I just enjoy hearing the music for it as well. E.T. has a great soundtrack. And so E.T. would actually earn John an Academy Award, a BAFTA Award, and a Golden Globe and a Grammy. So he got basically one of everything for E.T.
Now let's get into a tiny piece of trivia that I love about John Williams, and he's full of little fun things like this. There's another one I'll say as well. But in 1984, John wrote a piece of music for the Olympics that will become pretty famous, and that's the main Olympic fanfare and theme. This song would actually land John a Grammy. That's crazy. Right? He also wrote some music for the 88 Olympics as well, and that one's called Olympic Spirit. We didn't really recognize that one like we recognized the 84. I think the 84 is the famous one. I had also heard... I had also heard that the graduation theme song he had a hand in writing.
Yeah, there was a list of his works. If you
know
pull
the
it
one
up,
I'm talking about.
Yep, I know the one you're talking
about. That song.
Yeah, he also wrote some pieces for a lot of news channels that still use the music like that stuff. He also, speaking of that, I just did an NFL one. He wrote the NFL music too. Like a lot of the lot of the pieces for like the Monday Night Football and Sunday Night, all those like music themes. He wrote those. Yep, dude, he just writes like everything you've ever heard. It's like
so I cannot listen right now because we're doing this, but I believe I am incorrect about the graduation song. Apparently, it is called "Pomp and Circumstance March No. 1" by Elgar.
Oh, but
if that's the one I'm thinking of, that is not John Williams, and it seems he did not have a hand in that. So. I redact that. It
might have been something else, but yeah, he has some news channels he's done music for, some NFL pieces he's done music for, the Olympics, obviously, and the Olympics still reuses that theme from the '84.
Oh yeah, that's like the Olympics theme.
That one became like the one. So,
yep,
just like God, it's just crazy.
Jumping ahead to '87, Spielberg and Williams teamed up again for another film, Empire of the Sun. I haven't seen this movie. I don't think you've seen this movie.
I have not.
Yeah, actually, it's a fun fact about me. Most movies I haven't seen.
Right.
So
we're here for music, not the movies. So it's a little more investment of time to go listen to a whole movie. So I listened to some pieces, here and there. For most of the films I haven't heard of, I tried to go listen to at least the main theme and like another 2 pieces from it.
Right.
Just to get an idea.
Yeah.
And John just does a really good job of writing exactly what the movie needs. So like a lot of times you can look at the movie and like in your head be like, I think the soundtrack will be like this. And usually he does a good job of nailing it. What were you going to say?
So I was going to say he won a BAFTA award and received quite a few nominations for that one too.
Yep. So that one did BAFTA is what the British awards, British Art of Film, I believe is what it stands for. Anyways, right. It's like the British Film Award. So I guess the movie did a little better overseas than over here. But let's jump a couple years, 1990, with the release of one of the best Christmas movies, in my opinion, Home Alone. Yep. This soundtrack is incredible. And we actually went and saw this with a live orchestra. It was like they play the movie and then a live orchestra is on stage and plays the music live for the movie.
We went and saw, the Charlotte Philharmonic.
Yep.
Like Ashton said, they played the movie on a massive projection screen, and the movie itself has no music, and instead a live orchestra, in this case the Charlotte Philharmonic, played the score live to the movie. So we got to see it with the live music. That was a really cool experience, and for me, like it drew so much more attention to the music in ways that I didn't expect. I still remember the one thing I took away from that was, wow, he uses a lot of tremolo strings. Like every time I'm looking up, the strings are going like it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was as big of a thing as it was. But just masterful, And then we also went back and saw Star Wars, and then they had some other ones as well that we should actually go check out again.
Going to those is awesome. They do it with a lot of movies. Like any movie that has like a classic orchestral score to it, they usually
honestly every John Williams score.
And so I haven't got a chance to, but I really want to go see Jurassic Park. Favorite movie of all time.
Jurassic Park would be great. Harry Potter would be great.
Harry Potter would be an awesome
I want to see someone. I want to see someone live on nail those violin parts.
Oh, the violin part. Ooh.
Have you ever paid attention to those?
Oh no, they're crazy.
In the background of like the chillest part of the song, like
like everything's simple and the violin is literally like going crazy on stage.
I have heard. I'm not a classical performer, but I have heard that a lot of philharmonics use that as a like test for violinists. Like, hey, play this for us, and then you're in.
I mean, that part is nuts.
Piece. It's just like straight 30-second notes, just like running scales, chromatics, like every crazy, insane thing you could think of.
Yep. And so after Home Alone, he did Hook. I don't know if you remember this movie.
Hook, yeah.
Yep.
Of course. Yeah, I'm very familiar with John's
Williams. Yep. Great movie.
Discography.
I watched that movie a lot as a kid. That one got
played a lot. It was always on like the DVD player in our van. Like
that's exactly where I watched it all the time, dude. The DVD player in the van. But I mean, I'm not upset about it. Great song, or great movie. It was supposed to be a musical, actually. Originally,
I could see that.
He wrote it with lyricist Leslie Bricusse. Is that Bricusse? Yeah. But anyways, they wrote an entire musical, and then ultimately they cut that and just kept 2 of the songs they wrote in the film.
That feels so weird to just be watching a regular movie, not a musical, and then out of nowhere they start dancing and singing, and then they only do that one other time.
Yeah, right.
You're like, wait a second, was this a musical? What is this?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the songs they incorporated. There was one that the whole Lost Boys like sang, and it wasn't really like I'm trying to remember. I think it was more like a fight kind of song. So it didn't have like the classic musical sound, you know. So they did it really well. But now 2 successful years for John after Hook. Very successful. He had a movie released in 93 and 94, and the first one, like I previously just said, my favorite movie of all time, 1993, Jurassic Park. I love this movie, and I also love the score so much. I like when I was redoing the research, like listening to stuff, every time it's playing a bunch of themes from the films, and then the Jurassic Park one comes on, that do 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 do, like I just
that's one of the best themes ever,
dude. Goosebumps every single time when that one comes on.
One of the best themes ever. Welcome to Jurassic Park.
It's just
and the
so
doors
big.
open and the theme goes nuts.
Yeah, the theme is so large to, you know, because part of the writing, you know, dinosaurs, big, you know, he wanted these big sounds, these, you know, the drums are huge. We spent
last summer playing the video game for Jurassic World, and in the music in the game, I was just like, I got to put the controller down and just enjoy. Like,
right, dude. Oh, that score just is like goosebumps, nostalgia, everything. It's that
Nailed
one.
it.
That one is my absolute favorite. But what blew my mind, he only won a BMI for a BMI Film Music Award for the score. No other.
To me, that says there must have been another crazy successful film music movie out that year or something, you know.
And there was. He followed up his 93 Jurassic Park with 94 Schindler's List with Spielberg, which at the time Spielberg and John, you know, teamed up for Schindler's List, and when Spielberg brought John in to do the movie, they got together and they did a screening, you know, did the screening. And the screening, for anybody who doesn't know, is basically the part where the movie is shown to whoever's going to do the music, the composer. And it's just the whole film with no music. And they sit down and they watch it, and it's their first take on it. And so after watching it the first time, John had to take a few laps to gather himself because of the emotion of the film and everything he felt. And he went to Steven, and he told Steven, he said, "Steven, this is truly a great film, and you need a better composer than I am for this film." And Steven responded, "I know, but they're all dead." And so the score would end up...
That's a good friend right there. You can tell they're good friends.
He goes, "I know." But yeah, so the score would end up winning John an Academy Award, a BAFTA Award, and a Grammy. So Schindler's List
that is a very famous John Williams score, and one of which I've never seen the movie, and I'm probably the least familiar with that score. I need to really spend some time with that one.
Yeah, that one's not your classic just due to the nature of the film, you know. A lot of violin parts, things like that. Just because it's like that. I mean, it's such a serious note and emotional film. I watched the very end with all of the families laying flowers on Schindler's grave. Do you know the premise of the film?
Roughly. It's something with the Holocaust, right?
Yeah, so Schindler was a German who refuged a bunch of Jews and saved as many people as he could during the Holocaust time. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the film, he's like, it's just his like grave, and it's like every family that was related to anybody that he had saved during the Holocaust, and it was like all the families coming up and laying flowers on his grave. I'm like tearing up just thinking. It's like super emotional.
I was gonna say that sounds super emotional. Just you describing.
Yeah,
it.
Dude, I'm over here like tearing up just because it's like all the. It's like, and there's no words. There's nothing going on except for the music score and people just laying down the flowers.
So he had to say everything in the music.
Yes, yeah. So it's just like, oh my god, like that part. But the music is so good, and Yeah, that's definitely one that I want to watch the movie just because it's...
I think that's on, my wife and I got one of those big posters with scratch off, watch all the movies on the poster. It's like 100 all-time great movies or something like that. I think that's definitely on there, so I will watch that at some point.
Yeah, I will too.
So after this, we're in the 90s, and John worked on a few movies here and there. I think it's worth saying he didn't have to do anything at this point. Like, he could have easily just lived out the rest of his days, which he's still living, but he could have just easily just thrown his hat in the ring and been like, I'm going to the beach for 30 years,
Yeah.
But he didn't. Like, he just loves the work, loves music and keeps giving his gift to the world, and we're thankful for it. So he worked on The Lost World, which is Jurassic Park 2.
Yep.
He got himself a Grammy for that. Or no, sorry, he got a Grammy for Saving Private Ryan.
Yep, which came out right after.
Another huge one.
Which I didn't know he did Saving Private Ryan. I had no clue. That was a new
I knew he did, but I've only seen parts of the movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole movie either, just bits and pieces.
And he's just earned a ton of nominations for all these things.
Yeah.
So, and he worked on some other movies that I wasn't as familiar with during the 90s. 7 Years in Tibet and Amistad. I knew the names and I know the score just because I've done a lot of listening to his music, but I don't know the movies. So let's jump to 2001 for the release of yet another series that would create one of the largest fan bases in the world, and that's Harry Potter. John Williams scored, for those of you that didn't know, the first 3 Harry Potter films, which is important because he wrote Hedwig's theme, which is the main theme that will reappear throughout all those movies. What's cool about that is he gets to get paid, even though he didn't
score the other movies.
Any of the work on the last. He does 3 of the 7, or 3 of the 8, I guess. 7? There's 7 books, 8 movies.
8 movies, 7 books, yeah.
So he did 3 of the 8, but gets paid for all of them.
Yep. Because
what a good gig.
Yeah, so after he did the 3, like, they continued to reuse Hedwig's theme just because it's so good. How do you go in and try and rewrite that?
Something I just learned, he was supposed to come back for the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Yep.
But due to scheduling, he was unable, and I think Alexander Desplat did both of the Deathly Hallows. And I mean, honestly, all the music through all of the different composers they used. Alexander Desplat did just the last 2. I think he might have done 6 as well. Just really phenomenal. Go and listen to the music on those 2. They are so good. But yeah, you love the use of the chimes. What you're hearing, the main sound of kind of that mystery and magic, is actually called a celeste or a celesta. I forget how you say it. It looks like a piano, but it sounds like that chimey sound. That one. That's what it is, dude. And he would actually not win any awards for his score in Harry Potter, and that's insane.
Dude, just like Jurassic Park, I was like, how did he not win anything? But
they were just like, John,
got a bunch of nominations.
We got to give it to someone else. Like, we got to give it to someone else. You're here every year. Like,
yeah. I also think that. So I do think that I'd have to go verify, but I think there's times where he, like I said previous, where he doesn't win because another film he worked on won over another film that he did. But when you have those kind of problems, but yeah, it's something about like the way that first note that you're talking about, like with the Harry Potter, like gets the hairs on my arm instantly raised. Like it's so iconic and recognizable.
There's one thing I think he did with Hedwig's theme in particular, but listen to the whole score of the first 3 movies. It's recurring. He captured the essence of magic in music.
Yeah, you're right.
Like it sounds magical and fantasy. It doesn't sound like anything other than that. And I think a large part of that is the celeste being kind of a main centerpiece. And if you just pull up a celeste plugin and play some chords, you'll be like, whoa, it sounds like Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to think of any time. Maybe we just don't hear that instrument come through in many other things, which is why it has such an iconic sound, because it's like, I don't hear that instrument every day. And because I literally just thought it was chimes. So that blew my mind that it was a different instrument entirely.
Yep.
God, it would have been awesome for John to come back for the last movie, though.
That would have been amazing,
right?
But that's not. But again, I think that's not to take away anything from the score that's there.
The other people killed it.
I really think the score there is amazing, and the movies themselves get darker and darker and darker. And I think they started perfectly. They started really light, where it's kind of happy and da 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 da, all that stuff, and then they kind of got darker as he left as well. So I think that was really cool. So back to working with Spielberg.
Yep. They released AI, Artificial Intelligence, in 2001, and it actually won a Saturn Award. That was the only award it won. And I had no clue what a Saturn Award was, so I looked it up. And it's like a smaller award specifically for the genres of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. So just like it's like getting a film award. It's just a smaller version for some of those movie genres that can't exactly compete with the big stuff.
So can I just make up an award and give myself awards?
I think so.
Just call it like the
I'm better than you award.
I'll just call it something super official, like the
super
American Alternative Music Awards or something.
Yep.
Literally just made it up,
and
make a website,
just, like,
give myself them every year.
Say these bands won it. Like, do you want to show up to
and
my
then throw my band
to
in there too?
It?
And then throw my band in there too.
Yeah. There you go.
Make a plaque, just me holding a plaque.
Yeah, and then whenever you're trying to get gigs, like, dude, we've won awards that like all these other bands have won on your fake.
Yeah, it's just the only two people that have ever won this award are us and Garth Brooks.
Yeah, so like you should probably book us. God, that'd be funny.
We won an American Alternative Country Music Award in 2023, 4, 5, 6.
But anyways, after the AI movie, him and Spielberg worked on Catch Me If You Can in 2002, which I guess has some jazzy roots in this score. And then he paid homage to classic horror films with the score of War of the Worlds in 2005, which that
was Tom Cruise. I remember that movie.
Cruise.
That movie scared me to death.
Dude, is that the one with like the aliens that have like they're like the alien robots, but they have really long, like the metal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They look like jellyfish.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. Cause I was trying to remember the movie and I didn't remember dude. I don't know if the last time we listened, but I went and listened to the theme from that movie. It's like 4 or 5 minutes long. Oh my God. It's so good. It is. He absolutely nailed like the classic horror. It's got like that menacing buildup that then breaks into like this, like, bunch of drums going and just like it gets really intense with the like he did a really good job with that theme. But after that he did some Grammy winning work for the movie Memoirs of Geisha and then scored
Memoirs of a Geisha.
Okay, sorry.
That's a very famous movie I have not seen.
I have not seen it either.
It is one of those ones that I've always seen the name of.
Lots of yeah. He got a Grammy. I think it won another award, but it definitely got a lot of nominations. That one was big.
A geisha, by the way, is a
geisha.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it's the female. I pulled it up here just to make sure I was right. The female Japanese performing artists and entertainers. They're trained in traditional Japanese performing art styles like dance, music, and singing. What you're visualizing in your head with the chalk white face and the red lips and the accents, that's the geisha.
Gotcha. And so after that, he did the film Munich, I believe, with Spielberg. I think that's how
Munich?
you say it. Yeah, Munich. Sorry. Is it Munich? Just like the German.
Just like Germany. I think that's what it is, yeah.
And then after that, he took
3 years off from scoring.
Yep. He took a little break from...
Wow.
I think it's like 2009 or so to 2013 is when he came back on. So like just a little breather, you know. He's getting up there. I'm sure he earned it finally. To take a couple years off, dude's been pretty busy for a while.
Go to the beach. Yeah.
Do you think he can turn the music off in his head when he's just living his regular life? Like he's just walking around, and I feel like he's just got themes just like coming in and one ear and out the other.
Like your dad watching the Vikings, he's like watching movies like, God, no.
Yep.
I would have done it better.
Yeah.
Just like screaming at the TV.
But he returned after his break with his best buddy, Steven Spielberg.
All right.
For the Adventures of Tintin, The Secret of the Unicorn, which I have not heard, but I listened to the music. It's an animated film. And based on reading the title and then the actual cover of the movie that popped up, completely different ideas. The cover of the movie is like a ship, and it's a little boy, like it's a boy on a dock, and he's got like a dog walking with him. And
wow.
But anyways, I listened to the
very, very obviously just doing like whatever he wants at this point. Like no amount of money is going to bring him to your film. Like he has to just feel the film, you know, feel like he can bring what he wants to it. It's what I'm getting from this.
But yeah, but I did listen to the music a little bit. Dude, super interesting. So it's got that like vampire kind of like horror sound. I don't know the instrument that I would like associate with like the Transylvanian vampire. we'd have to like do, it's like the classic, like, I just don't know what the instrument sound I'm trying to, it's not an accordion, but it's got like a very like mixture of like vampire kind of evil horror mixed with like a piratey kind of sea theme.
Yeah.
So it was like extremely interesting to me. I just listening to the music made me really want to watch the movie, because I was like, the music's really good. I got to figure out like what it associates with. So I might actually end up adding that movie to watch just because I liked the sound of the music so much.
And he followed that with a score for Lincoln, right?
Yep. Lincoln was after that.
I remember that movie coming out. That was Daniel Day-Lewis, I think, played Lincoln.
Yep. No awards for that film. And then I know it doesn't seem like we're as caught up on the timeline, but really over that course after he came back in Lincoln, he spent finishing the most recent Star Wars films, and then he did that Indiana Jones movie that came out last year in 2023, which he just won a Grammy for this year in 2024 for his score on that.
And being, he was born in 32, so he's 92 years old, and he's still winning Grammys like today.
Yep. He did think about, before this Indiana Jones movie, he thought about retiring and just retiring from film. He was just going to do composer work, specifically within the music setting, away from film. And then he decided against it and was like, I've got another 10 years. And so hopefully John keeps going, dude. He seems pretty lively. I watched him in some interviews like last year and whatnot. I know he had health complications earlier in his life. I think that was just a brief moment. I don't think it's anything serious, but no, he sounds happy, healthy, still out there scoring films to this day. Right now, probably at his old 100-year piano with his piece of paper and a pencil, writing out themes for future series. I wonder how much unwritten music has, or unreleased music he has just around.
By the way, check your phone. I just sent you that poster we were talking about. I want you to see that to give a quick comment on it before we're gone. But yeah, I was just looking through his discography. He's done so much just straight up classical concert work. So just writing classical pieces to be performed by orchestras, not even for films or anything like that. Not awesome. Counting the work he's done for the Boston Pops, not counting the work he's done on his own for jazz. And if you go on Apple Music and search John Williams, another John Williams will come up who's a guitar player, not to be confused. He's a classical guitar player. I've been confused several times. I was like, I didn't know he played guitar. It's a different guy.
Yep. No, John plays piano and a few brass instruments he played when he was young. Wow. I don't know if he kept up with them. I just know his dad being a musician. When John was raised, he learned piano and then a few different brass instruments for when he would go to the recording studio with his dad, so he could sit in on some instruments. So I know he used to play a few brass instruments. It said, I just don't know if he's actually maintained that through the years like he maintained piano. So dude is he's just gotta be awesome to have a conversation with. Very intelligent, very educated, loves music, and I don't know. It'd be really cool to sit down with him. Probably won't get a chance. He's a little old and a little famous for me, but I wonder if he's living in New York or LA right now. Probably still LA.
God, I would hope LA. Jeez.
Since he's still doing his film stuff.
Just for the only other reason than weather.
Yeah, I love that he has a New York accent though. He talks very much like a very soft sounding. Oh God, what's his name?
He's from Queens, so
yeah, Christopher Walken. He's got like Christopher Walken is like it's a New York accent, but it's like exaggerated in a weird way. It's like they talk similarly, but John has it's way more mellow and softer spoken kind of New York accent. So I don't know if that's specific to Queens but I like listening to him talk. And he says the words, he calls you angel and baby a lot. He calls people like,
that's funny.
He calls people angel and baby, no matter who you are and whatnot. It's just like one of those people that, God, it's like, I could never get away with that, but John can.
Very true.
Yeah, I could never get away with that. But that basically does it for John Williams up to today.
Legend.
Absolute legend. So I think I was saying it earlier. He has the second most nominations of anybody other than Walt Disney, who has the most, and for obvious reasons. Do you think Walt Disney still gets nominations even though he's dead for his company?
I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
He can't be credited for everything his company gets, can he? I don't think that's how that works. They would go to the directors and the people working on it, I think.
Yeah, I know Walt himself worked on so much stuff before he died, so I guess it would make sense that just the nominations for that, for those films. But still, that's the only person to beat him in nominations, so he's in second place for total nominations, and I do think he's first in Grammys. 26 Grammys, I think I said, or something like that. Absolute crazy.
Let's do a quick search.
Or maybe it was 26 Grammy nominations. He has 1, 2.
Who has the most Grammys? Beyonce has the most Grammy Awards of all time with 32. Who are some other artists with the most Grammys? Kanye
26,
West, Stevie Wonder, John Williams.
John Williams has 26, so I don't know where that is on the list. So you said Beyonce with 31?
32.
32? Okay, so he's 6 behind her. He just won his 26th.
Jeez.
Man, he's got to do better. That's all.
Yeah, you got to beat Beyonce, dude. Come on.
Beat Beyonce. What are you doing, John?
Yeah. I think that might kind of illustrate how it's more of a popularity contest than anything, but yeah.
Right. But
so anyway, that'll do it for us today.
That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that one.
That was
probably one of my favorite episodes to go through but we have to do our rankings still.
Oh, that's right. You know what? 5 of 5. John Williams, 5 of 5.
I was going to say, I was like thinking about it. I was going through and I was like, the only one.
I don't even need to look at the categories. 5 of 5.
Yeah.
Nostalgia, cultural impact, creativity. All the ones I can think of off the top of my head. 5 of 5.
Yeah, I think I'm like, I could, for the sake of simplicity, I could go there with the 5 of 5. Creativity, I might put it like a 3 or a 4, just because he did use some.
Whoa, what?
I know. It's crazy.
We might have to fight on that, dude. He comes up with Jaws. He comes up with Harry Potter. Every movie he does perfectly hits whatever the movie is. And all the movies are so different. And you mentioned the horror one as well.
I know, but he, like, as far as creativity, he did just use a lot of older inspirations from like older, like, and I'm not saying like, and I know he is creative, like he came up with all this stuff. I'm just saying a lot of his work does have like clear inspiration sounding from things. So like, I see how you can make that argument. Saying? Like, I think a counter argument would be like, that's kind of true for everybody. It is. And like your different takes, but some of his stuff sounds very similar to some of his inspirations, like not changed up as much. That's the only one I would fight you on, but everything else is a 5. Like Nostalgia's definitely a 5.
Yeah, dude.
Cultural
Impact's got to be 5 of 5 just because how many people are walking around singing these themes, and we already addressed Jaws being bigger than the movie itself. Most of his themes are bigger than the movies themselves. Yeah, I was like, it's almost impossible to go through your life and not have heard anything that John Williams has done. Like, almost impossible. And to the point that the Olympics hired him. Like, exactly. So, like, yeah, I figured he would be our highest rating just due to, God, everything. He just hits all the categories in the right way. So. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, John gets a perfect 5 of 5 for me. But first, before we leave, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Melomaniax, on Instagram and TikTok. Melomaniax podcast, actually. And most importantly, please hit us with those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you learned something, let us know what it is. I certainly learned something from just about every episode. And all these reviews are just going to help us keep growing the podcast so we can keep bringing quality content to you guys. So, and one last note, we do have that Patreon. It's a $5 per month tier that gets you access to our Discord. You can hang out with us and other like-minded music people like yourself. And we'll also give you a shout out on an episode and the ability to vote on future episode topics like John Williams today, or one of our past Patreon members voted on Avenged Sevenfold, and we ended up doing an episode on that, I think, 2 weeks ago. So this has been one of my favorites so far, like you said. I can't wait. Any closing words from you?
Nope. Yeah, I just had a lot of fun with this episode, and I can't wait to hear from the people on what they think.
Likewise. Yeah, I love this. Let's keep them coming. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. Bye.